of Black Panther films on the MCU and the audiences who embraced it. Why do you think so many people are drawn to these stories?
I mean, the impact Black Panther had on the MCU was allowing us to tell stories that were very much anchored in a reality of the world we live in, and really celebrating cultures that aren't always celebrated in film. And I think people embraced it for those reasons. You know, I think sometimes cultural specificity is seen as something to avoid because the fear is it will push people away. The truth is, I think it brings people in. And it allows people to learn about things they didn't know about, and also to see the commonalities. And so Wakanda Forever builds on that idea, not only in expanding what we see in the world of Wakanda, but also introducing the world of Talokan, which is very much inspired by Mayan civilization, both past and present.
How was the Black Panther family dealt with the loss of Chadwick Boseman? How did you arrive at the decision to continue without him?
It was a tough loss, and it was compounded by the fact that it happened during the height of COVID, so it was very hard to grieve together. And one of the benefits, if there was one, to making the film was that we all got to be together for the first time for some of us to talk about Chadwick and the memories of Chadwick, of who he was off the screen as much as on. The decision to move forward was a hard one, but I think the truth is Chadwick would have probably wanted us to continue the legacy of Wakanda because he, maybe more than any of us, understood what it meant to people. And so as easy as it might have been to sort of put it down and say, hey, we had a great film and we couldn't be more happy with having one great Panther film, the truth is, why not continue the legacy?
Describe how Black Panther has a father-son story and how that ultimately inspired Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, Black Panther is very much about T'Challa coming to grips with the legacy of T'Chaka, who he'd first met in Civil War and lost in that film. I think Wakanda Forever is interesting in that the paradigm has shifted and it becomes a mother-daughter story, which is not a paradigm we see a lot in Marvel films. But once we decided that the narrative was very much about T'Challa's passing and a nation trying to come to grips with that, well, the two people who are most front and center in Wakanda in that respect are Ramonda and Shuri. Ramonda as the queen and Shuri as the head of the Wakandan design group, who both feel that loss as acutely as anyone because they were related to the man. So building the story around the mother-daughter dynamic was really powerful. And we have two fantastic performers in Angela Bassett and Letitia Wright. So there's nothing they can't do. It's really up to us as storytellers to put them in the right position to really shine, and hopefully we've done that.
Why is Shuri struggling as the story gets underway, and what does Ramonda want for her daughter?
Shuri struggles because I think in her mind she feels like she should have been able to prevent her brother's death. As the smartest woman in Wakanda and potentially the world, if she couldn't solve the problem of the illness that took his life, who could have? And so we find her in a bit of a state of denial in this film. You know, she doesn't really want to access the emotions around his passing because there's a lot of guilt wrapped up in that and a lot of anger wrapped up in that. And Ramonda as a mother, and as someone who has lost before, because again, she's lost her husband, I think she understands the grieving process a little bit better and wants to bring her daughter out of the darkness and into the possibility of life beyond T'Challa's passing. It's not easy for Ramonda, you know, but she loves Shuri, and I think that's the dynamic we find in this film is Shuri being resistant to the healing that Ramonda wants for her daughter.
Introduce Namor and his kingdom of Talokan.
So Namor is the descendant of a sect of the Mayan civilization that was fleeing colonization by the Spanish in the 1500s. And through a series of events, his people gained the ability to breathe underwater, and he, because he was born after they had fled to the oceans, became essentially the first mutant. He, unlike his forebears, could breathe both underwater and on land. He could fly, he was incredibly strong, and he aged much slower. And he became the de facto ruler of this new world called Talokan. And what's interesting about them is, much like Wakanda, they've preferred to hide in the shadows for centuries because they understood that colonization was never that far afield. But the events of the movie are going to pull them into the spotlight, and it actually puts Namor and Talokan at odds with Wakanda, because Wakanda has introduced to the world the notion of vibranium, and unbeknownst to Wakanda, Talokan has vibranium as well. And so these two nations end up at each other's throats a little bit over the fact that Namor is just trying to protect his people from being discovered.
Who is Riri Williams? What role does she play for Shuri, and what makes her such a fascinating character?
So Riri Williams is a young African-American student at MIT who's incredibly brilliant, and much like Shuri, is probably usually the smartest person in the room. Unfortunately for Riri, she's invented something that has allowed for the detection of vibranium, and in fact, the U.S. government does find vibranium in the ocean, which again sets Namor and Talokan on a collision course with Wakanda. Riri Williams is a fascinating character because she's also been inspired by one of the MCU's first heroes, Iron Man, and has built a suit of armor that she knows how to fly and use, which is surprising even to someone as brilliant as Shuri, because she doesn't think that that sort of brilliance would live outside of Wakanda. And so you have these two women sort of at the top of their game, both forced into a partnership with each other and also building a little bit of a sisterly bond because they love the same thing. They love science, they love technology, and they're equally brilliant. So they find a kinship, I think, that is unlike anything we have in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
The film features several strong female characters. Describe how the cast members, from Angela Bassett, Letitia Wright, to Lupita Nyong'o, Danai Gurira, and Dominique Thorne, bring unique sensibilities to their characters.
Yeah, they're all such different performers, and their characters, I'll do credit to Ryan Coogler and Joe Robert Cole, who co-wrote the script, have such different functions in the movie that we think it gives you a pretty good spectrum. And I would add Florence Kasumba and Michaela Coel to that list. All brilliant performers in their own right, all with a different energy, all serving a different narrative function, but collectively telling the story of a place that's trying to overcome a loss and to become something greater. And we couldn't be blessed with a better group of actresses who only elevate each other and support each other both on screen and off.
What do you hope audiences walk away feeling or saying after seeing this film?
I hope they feel a sense of catharsis. I hope they say that it was exciting as well as emotional, that it was interesting and engaging and intellectually stimulating but funny. It really wants to be a roller coaster ride to a degree, and hopefully in a way that feels organic and not manipulative. But it really is an epic film, and the truth is, I hope audiences just get to see it collectively. You know, I think in watching the film with an audience for the first time last night, you realize how the collective experience of moviegoing is so important and transformative. And so the hope is people get to sit together in a theater, experience it, and come out the other side talking about the movie, and also, again, feeling a small sense of healing if that's possible.